The Jaguars are sitting at an ugly 2-11. That's not the worst record in NFL history, but the job Urban Meyer did for this team has an argument as the worst coaching performance of all time. I made a list of the 8 steps Meyer took to destroy his reputation and quite possibly the future of the Jaguars franchise. When Meyer was putting together his coaching staff, well, let's just say he didn't quite think things through. Which, by the way, is gonna be a theme for this video. He brings in ex-Iowa strength and conditioning coach Chris Doyle, a guy who had been accused of racism and bullying by former players. But it seems Meyer didn't believe those allegations, saying Doyle did a very good job at Iowa and he was very confident that his close friend of 20 years wouldn't cause any issues. So in comes the NFL's Diversity Alliance to criticize the hire, and it doesn't take long for Doyle to resign. Meanwhile, Meyer was left tucking his tail, leaving a statement that read, "We are responsible for all aspects of our program and in retrospect should have given greater consideration to how his appointment may have affected all involved." So already you probably got a couple of players wondering if they can even trust the man put in charge of this team. Now, one little coaching hire error was fixed and hopefully put behind for good. Meyer still had a championship resume, right? The question back then was, could he build a championship caliber team at the professional level? The first check in the column against that was a downright head-scratching move to bring in Tim Tebow. The only real defense for this decision would be Meyer attempting to counter the Doyle situation with a high-character player like Tebow. And the problem with that argument at this point in his life was that you could barely even call Tebow a player. The last time he played in an NFL game was 9 years ago. After that, he had 2 failed stints with the Patriots in 2013 and Eagles in 2015. So it had been 6 years since Tebow had even touched NFL turf. He had more recently been a minor league baseball player, broadcaster, actor for those Heisman House commercials, then actually playing in the NFL. And they were going to ask him to play a new position that requires more physically from the human body. At this point, Tebow was 33. Gronk originally retired at that position at 29. The best way for a coach to build a program is through the draft. Meyer was handed a franchise quarterback on a silver platter, and he was blessed with another first-round pick in his first draft. A pick that he elected to spend on Travis Etienne. I really liked Etienne in college, and he could very well become a solid player in the NFL, but the Jaguars already had a solid player at that position in James Robinson, while the rest of their roster was filled with holes. And that position just happens to be running back, which, when getting drafted in the first round, is somewhat of a controversy itself when you look at the needs of an NFL team. This isn't fantasy football where you prioritize running back. The pick was rightfully questioned, and unfortunately Etienne never had the opportunity this year as he suffered a season-ending injury. Can't blame anyone for injuries, but the selection seemed like a bad choice from the start. Yes, our most notorious step in the wrong direction. It's also page 1 in the rulebook on how to lose a locker room faster than you can say leadership. This image right here is the one that will define Urban Meyer's NFL legacy. A stain on his career as a whole, and quite frankly, a stain on his life. On the same night the Jaguars dropped to 0-4, Meyer infamously skipped the team plane so he could stay in Ohio. And, well, I mean, the video speaks for itself. A married man who is supposedly setting a great example for a locker room, at that point, being a distraction for the team was the least of his worries. And to be honest with you, the Jaguars should have just cut loose at this point. There's no universe in which Meyer could possibly dig himself out of this hole. James Robinson was a surprise success story last year as a rookie. He's been a bright spot for a miserable franchise. So when Meyer effectively benched him, there were plenty of questions. He even had a potential NFL first with his rookie quarterback publicly questioning his decision making. Trevor Lawrence said, "Bottom line is James is one of our best players, and he's gotta be on the field." Robinson was punished for his on-field performance, taking a little dip, while the rest of the Jags lineup is littered with mistakes every week, and they don't even sniff the bench. One of the first things interim head coach Darrell Bevell announced was that Robinson is their starting running back. It's amazing how easy it is to look good when you're replacing such destruction. Just days before Meyer was fired, Tom Pelissero released a bombshell report that showed just how dysfunctional this team was. Pelissero said Meyer had multiple run-ins with coaches and players. That includes Marvin Jones, a survivor of the Matt Patricia-era Lions, who got so angry with Meyer that he had to leave the facility. And the best part of that report, as I'm sure you've heard, is Meyer telling his assistant coaches that he was a winner and they were losers, as he challenged them to defend their resumes. Now we all knew even the most patient NFL owner would have to fire his sore ass. It was only a matter of time, but more time meant that Meyer could keep digging that hole even deeper. Just 2 days before the firing, we were blessed with more fuel to the fire. Meyer commented on safety Andre Cisco, saying Cisco was playing a little bit more. But, of course, Cisco hadn't even played a single snap on Sunday. You could call this one a small error compared to some of the other disasters on this list, but it's just yet another sign of the lack of structural knowledge that Meyer had on his own team. The cherry on top of the Meyer carnage. Perhaps the straw that broke the camel's back. First off, apparently Meyer can't even give his specialists the respect of a name. He calls them punter, kicker, lawn snapper, or sometimes dip. And he really crossed the line earlier this season when he decided to walk up to his kicker Josh Lambo while he was stretching and say, "Hey, dip, make your kicks," as he proceeds to kick Lambo in the leg. Takes a genius to kick a kicker in the leg while hoping that he will make more kicks. That'll get the job done. It's honestly, I wonder how this team even won 2 games. Although the record is atrocious, I know Meyer didn't have the absolute worst win-loss record for a coach ever. But with the direction that franchise is going and with what's coming out of that locker room, I'd say there's a stark contrast between him and one-win Dan Campbell. 10 out of 10 players are taking Campbell as their coach. You wouldn't think it would be possible to take a step back from the 1-15 Jaguars of last year, but Meyer, even while winning one more game, still somehow managed to do it. At this stage, you just gotta hope that it won't ruin the career of Trevor Lawrence for good.